Hey, welcome back to another episode of One Step Further. I am your host, Justin Arnold. Today we have Chris Andrews. But if this is your first time bringing yourself to this podcast, it is a podcast where we, exactly what the title says, we hope to bring your life a step further. Again, whether it be personally, professionally, spiritually, and all that. We're going to cover a lot of different things today with our buddy Chris. But Chris, before we further ado, if you're like, who's Chris Andrews? Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the folks that are listening a little bit about yourself, any more nuggets, and we'll get this conversation going.
Very good. Good afternoon, Justin. Yeah, Chris Andrews is a several-year client now of FlexxMP and Performance. And during my time training with Justin Arnold at FlexxMP, we've had many great conversations all the while, physically and mentally getting stronger and better. And in doing so, one day we were just chatting it up whilst working out. And lo and behold, he says, "Hey, would you mind doing a podcast?" And I said, "Sure." I said, plenty to talk about in this life. So here I am.
Yeah, Chris has a cool story, just even within the few years that I've known him and his life story. And he left off some cool stuff already, and we'll probably dive into that. He's got kids. He's got an amazing business, successful business that he's been running, and he actually pulled back on some of that, which we'll probably get into. And, and then his health journey. Why don't we start with your amazing health journey? Let's see, we met, what was it, 4, 5, 6, I don't know. It feels like ages ago. How long has it been? So when I was upstairs.
Yeah, it's almost 4 years now when you were in the smaller facility. That's right.
Yeah, talk about your health journey just over the last 4 years and what it's been like overall.
Well,
I drink my smoothie.
As a landscape construction professional, my body's in constant motion and in constant use. And 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with a fragmented vertebrae in my back and had to go through surgery, which corrected the fragmented part of the issue. But of course, underlying that was, weak core, weak back muscles, all of which had kind of weakened in order to try and compensate, the fractured back vertebrae. And so I went down that journey, surgery, and kind of, not knowing where it was going to lead me. The surgery was a success, thank God. But several years later, I experienced, discomfort, back pain, kind of always felt like I was out of alignment. And went back to the surgeon to see if something had moved, if another surgery was necessary. And much to my dismay, he alluded that I was going to have to live with this discomfort. It was going to come and it was going to go. And it was then that I inquired about strength training, any kind of weightlifting, working out. We call it working out. All of us call it working out. But I inquired about that, and he said, that's not going to help you. He says, your back is your back. It's always going to have its issues, and working out really isn't going to change that. And I was really jaded at that point to hear from a neurosurgeon that this was the case.
Yeah, pause right there before you continue. Isn't that crazy? Like the doctor already set limitations on the rest of your life. For those that are listening and can't really see this handsome man right here, how old are you, Chris?
I'm 46, closer to 47 now.
So how old were you when this doctor told you that?
I was, let me think about this. I was 42.
So the dude is 42 years old, and this doctor said, the rest of your life, basically, this is my words and how I interpret it, you're going to suck and not be able to do much. And just for the folks that are listening, he's got kids. He's got young kids. You got 3 kids. What were their ages then? What are their ages now?
Oh, Maya was a year old. Finn was 4 years old, and Thomas was 13.
So he's got young kids. They're obviously add 4 to those numbers. But, I mean, like, you've got a baby, basically. You got young children, and people say you're not gonna be able to really play and hang out with them and hinge and move. Like, you better just check it up. Life as you know it is gonna just rant. I mean, that's how I would have taken that response. I know that's not quite what he's saying, and I'm being maybe a little over dramatic. I don't know, but that's like had to be just like a gut wrenching, like kick in the stomach, right?
It was, because I had always thought about working out as a means to, strengthen, lose weight, which I was heavier then, and I had no, training plan. I had no dietary plan, anything like that. Caloric intake. I lived most of my life being able to eat the foods that I wanted to eat. And because I was so physical, my metabolism, canceled that out. But as I got older, it became very obvious that that was slowing down. And I had to learn about slowing metabolism as a way to explain why I could no longer eat the things that I wanted while still doing the very physical job that I was doing. But yeah, it definitely was, took the wind out of my sails when the surgeon said, you can work out, but it's not going to change your back.
Yeah, and I just think that's so crazy. And so many people, whether it's a doctor, a friend, a significant other, even ourselves, we tell ourselves these stories that limit. Well, because I was literally I've hinted on here, so I can hint on this. I was talking to my book coach this morning, and he was told that he had ADHD, and I'm kind of a similar story. And we were talking about some other things and how we get these titles, and then it's almost like they set limitations instead of trying to improve ourselves. A lot of people that weren't you, we're going to fast forward here in a second, but a lot of people weren't you would have just lived, oh, my back's broken, I can't do all these things, or quit their job, retire early. What do you do? So I just think it's incredible what you've been able to do. And for those that listening, the message right now on moving a life step forward is pay attention to the stories you tell yourself and the stories that other people say. I'm not going to say this isn't true. I'm not going to say there's no miracle cure. But as soon as you get that idea in your head that you can't, guess what? You can't. And I'm a big guy of let's see. I think that was one of the first things I think I said to you when you came to me. It was you started telling me all this stuff, and you told me what you like and what you do for a living. And I'm like, well, let's see. I think so. But continue the story, and then let's fast forward to where you are now, too. And I don't know if you mentioned. Did you mention what your weight was when we met? Oh, you froze up. Okay, we are back on here. So we had a little friction. That's what happens with the Zoom. But anyway, so we were just talking, Chris, about people telling us all these stories and everything else, and then it's I when you came to me that first time, I was like, we'll see. But what was your weight when we first met? And then fast forward to where you are now and what you're able to do with the movements their doctor said you could never do again, let alone the weight that you could put up. Go ahead.
So when I came to you in March of 2017, my weight had increased to 220 pounds. And for my height, size, age, all of that stuff, I just knew that wasn't the number. In fact, I had been to the doctor not too long before that. And, when you go to the doctor, you get a printout. You get a printout of your blood pressure, your heart rate, your weight, your height, all of that stuff. And there was this IBW, and I said, what does this IBW mean? And that stood for, I never knew that stood for ideal body weight. And it said 178. And I said, I'm 220. And in my ideal body weight is 178.
Yeah.
So once I saw that was the number that I set my sights on. I had no idea how I was going to achieve it. Had no idea that through a combination of diet and training, that was going to happen. I had never lifted weights consistently, or at least, thought about lifting weights consistency ever in my life. I mean, I've got friends, relatives who, when they were 15, 16 in the weight rooms and athletes in school, and training was part of it, and you lifted weights and you bench pressed, and the bench press was the benchmark. For people, how much can you bench and everything. I had never done any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so here I was setting out in 2017 at 42, 43 to try and start my journey of strength training. You want to talk about an ominous task. You want to talk about an uphill battle. Your body's changed. You're over 40. You talk about, building lean muscle or anything like that, over 40 and stuff. So different than when you're 16, 17, 18, 20.
Big difference when you're a teenager. It's feels like you could do things improperly and not get hurt. But what we didn't know then, what we do know now, is all that thing's building. all of it's building compounding on your body. And like, for those that are listening and don't know what I'm talking about, basically, like, you could be injuring yourself in small scales at younger ages by improper movements and bad things, and don't start freaking out. But the big thing is like, all of a sudden, you know, you reach for like a table and your bicep tears or something, or your bicep shreds, and like, and that doesn't mean it was the table's fault or you did something wrong that day. It was an accumulation of just bad decisions and bad movements or whatever that turned into that, you know. So like, for your back, it wasn't like you had one bad day at the office and his office and his landscaping outside. It was an accumulation of bad movements. And some of the things that we did, you know, I'm not going on a tangent, but I think is important, is like, for him, and this is a lot of people, you could be some really mobile, strong. This guy has the best grip strength of anybody I know, which grip strength is very important to those listening. You need a grip strength, apparently makes you live longer. But we had to go on an educational approach. We're doing most people that come in here, but it was literally like teaching him how to properly hinge. We used objects to, like, shoveling snow, because that was one of his jobs. Some of these things, like, we tried to mimic that into the weight room. And then once we started getting him to move better, and we just started loading on that weight. And now, like, he can deadlift over 300 pounds. A dude was told never to deadlift, never to do these things. And he's not like just some random surprise story. He's not some genetic beast. It was just literally through a series of actionable steps of this guy deciding one day, like, I'm not going to live this way, and I just need help. And that's the big thing. Like, wherever you're at in your life, whatever, this is a message to you. If you feel you're stuck, or you feel like this is it, and life never has to plateau. Man, I just saw a video of I think like an 89-year-old, 145-pound man deadlift 405 pounds with perfect form, like for 3 reps. So yeah, the point of the story is, even if that's not your goal, don't decide your fate now for the rest of your life. So many people do. They hit this.
That's good advice.
Track.
Right.
And this guy has realized that, whoa, I think this is what you realize. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I think it's been is like, man, I get another year to be more awesome. At least that's my perspective on life. And I think that's your perspective. And it just grows to show it, because this guy's he talked earlier about being, his ideal was 178, and you're about that now, correct? So
I am. And I have learned, you know, that my weight will fluctuate, but I have been, you know, as high back up as 186 and as low as 168. So depending on what I'm doing and what I'm willing to, you know, if I'm in that fat burning mode or not, you know, it still can fluctuate. And it just goes to show to me how critical it is that you pay attention to your routines, you know, both whether or not you're training or what foods you're eating. It can, you know, once you achieve, I mean, at one point, you know, when I had realized that I had lost 50 pounds as a contractor, back then I was doing snow removal. And as a contractor, I equated that to a 50-pound bag of rock salt that somebody strapped to my waist. And I was carrying that weight in every movement of my life, from taking a shower to performing my work duties to playing with my kids. That was a 50-pound bag of rock salt that was strapped to my body.
That's a great perspective. So like, dropping that bag of salt is just like, that's why partially you're back, but also getting you stronger. And so, I mean, for anybody listening, like, you just got to start. It doesn't matter if you're 20, 30 or 80 or 90, like, as long as you're still on this planet, it's another day to keep living. And I think that's great. So like, how would you describe how you feel now? Like, any words you want to use. Obviously, we've already mentioned how much stronger you are, more mobile, and less pain you're in. But how do you feel now, like, at this ideal weight, compared to, you know, that 220 post back surgery self, Chris Andrews? How would you describe it?
Well, I think everybody's expecting me to say I feel the best I've ever felt. You know, that's kind of like the cliche, but the truth is, I am the strongest I've ever been. And people might say, well, you know, how'd you feel when you started out on your journey with FlexxMP? I felt strong. I mean, there was nothing I really couldn't ever do in my day-to-day job. You know, if I needed to pick something up and move it, like it got picked up and moved. However, today, I feel the strongest I've ever felt. I feel that when I train, there's not the there's not the stigma that, that's going to be hard to move, and it's probably not going to feel good. But, when I do, especially body weight exercises were always difficult for me. And I think that, Justin,
Yeah.
pull-ups, things of that nature. I
Yeah.
move so fluidly, and I can really crush, those movements where before I used to struggle so much. So that's what tells me that I'm getting stronger.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things, like when we started realizing the change, or you started realizing the change, it wasn't like, man, I mean, you were excited that you're eating healthy, had more energy, could do your job, you were losing weight, you were looking great, you're looking at your six pack and feeling good. But I think one of the coolest things that stood out to me most is like you being able to play with your kids and like feeling excited about that, the look on your face, and you're like, I can play with my kids again, like you're more
Yeah.
mobile and not in pain or not as tired. Like,
Yes.
And that's just an improvement of a domino effect of life. So just if you're listening, take your life now, and it might be great, but it's just one of those things like, what if like little things done daily that just create this domino effect, not only in your life, but you see how your energy affects those around you, your kids, your wife, your husband, whoever. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
This journey, these health journeys, isn't about get it looking better in bikini photos on that vacation. Well, that's cool too,
No.
and important, and I get it. It's not about necessarily like putting up one rep max. Well, that's cool too, and that should be totally good goals. I'm not saying these goals aren't cool goals, but it's like those things when your life better, but just simply being in a room and your energy makes the lives of others better, all because you decided to take one decision one day instead of listening to one other person's perception of things.
That's
and
right.
and just you change the pathway not only for yourself but your kids and those around you. And now we got your kids coming here working out, and that's setting a tone,
Right.
and that's going to trickle down generational. I just think I think that's really amazing. Well, let's shift gears, and let's talk about career life. Like, you're 46. This guy's got a super successful, amazing landscaping business. He's like an artist in the fields, like as I would call it. And what's cool is like some people like really drive and just work day in, day out. And not that this guy doesn't work his tail off, but he decided, what was it, last year, to take a huge chunk off a big part of his business. So as a landscaper in the wintertime here in Western New York, people don't know, a lot of them do snow removal because it
That's right.
snows a lot. We're sitting in it right now, and it's cool having you come into the gym and talk to you about how like you don't have to be out there in the snow right now. You can be here working out. So talk about like that decision. How was it a difficult decision? Why you decided to make that decision? I mean, that's for anybody who's listening in business. Maybe you can't relate, but like take something in your life that's like really draining, but you're just looking at the monetary aspect of it. What if that could let go and open up a world? That's why we're bringing this up. So let's dive into that a little bit, Chris.
Yeah, I had been, like you said, for anybody who does landscape in Rochester, New York, we only can be outside per se, so many months of the year doing installations and cleanups and in maintenance work, that's of the landscape nature. So it's always been default, and I stress the term default, for a landscaper to be involved in the snow removal aspect of the business, because you've got the manpower, you've got the trucks, and let's face it, what else are you going to do in the wintertime? You're gonna shift gears. You're gonna retrofit your trucks that used to haul material. Now you're gonna plow snow. You're gonna move salt, and you're gonna shovel sidewalks, and that's what we did. For 29 years. I was 16 years old.
29 years.
Yeah, if I was 16 years old, they would come, they would pick me up. I didn't have a license, and I would shovel complexes for what seemed like days. And they would just pick me up from one and drop me off at another. And then when I was done with that one, they'd pick me up and take me to another one. And so I have not known, you think about snow in Rochester, you think about all the fun things: skiing, sledding, hiking, taking drives through the countryside and things like that. Like, I haven't known any of that. When it snows, I knew one thing. I knew one thing when it snowed after the age 16, and that was you went to work.
You went to work. That's crazy.
Yeah, you went to work. When it snowed, you went to work. And the story or the sounds to this day still haunt me. I mean, 16 years ago, it was the beepers. The beepers would go off in the night, those annoying beepers and pagers. And then it became the cell phones ringing and so on and so forth. And when you get to be 46 years old and it's cold out, and the expectations of the clients have changed over the years. Everybody's in the snow removal business now. There's so much competition. You have to be there at their beck and calls. There's no vacations. There's no time away. There's no missing holidays. There's plenty of missing of children's events and sports events and Christmas pageants and choirs and things and hockey tournaments and stuff like that. Like, I couldn't go to any of those things because I had to be aligned to do my job when and if it snowed. And so I just had enough. I just had enough, and I looked at the numbers, and I said, you know what? I said, I will find a way. I will find a way to walk away from this aspect of it. Of course, there was fear that went along with it, but in the end, now this is my second winter of having retired from snow removal, and I'm grateful. So yes, it's opened
why
up
is that?
a huge
Why are you so
opportunity.
grateful? What do you?
I'm grateful for the time that it's just begun. And again, just to be clear, so many people have said, my God, what are you going to do now with all that time? I'm going to do the things I want to do. I'm going to do the things that still get pushed aside during the what we call growing seasons. Here is the landscape. You've got these 8-9 months that are the growing season, and you're going toe to toe every day with the weather and everything. And so these months now where I don't have to worry about the snow removal part of it, I'm going to do the things finally that I want to do, that I've been wanting to do. I'm going to go places that I've wanted to go, and I'm going to take time. I'm going to sit and watch it snow and not have to worry about it,
Yeah. And and I think that have a glass of cocoa with your kids or something. I think that's incredible, and that's something too. Like, I can relate sort of like during COVID. While I think a lot of business owners, including myself for a minute, freaked out, and there's been stressful moments. I'm not going to act like I've been riding a rainbow of and unicorns, but it has been most of the time, and it was a mindset shift of I can only, and it's always been, I've got a tattoo to my own arm, let go, let God. And it's just that shift of control what you can, let go of the rest, and prioritize what's important. And for me, it's like I say to everyone, my number one job is dad. Everything else is the vehicle. Like, I love training, I love my gym, but at the end of the day, like if everything went away, what would I miss the most? Or if I can only pick one thing to keep, it would be my children, obviously my wife. But like, the wife will be with me, I pray. No, but the wife will be with me, and we'll always be together, and we always make time for each other. But the kids, they're out of the house. I know it. I grew up in that. So, and I see that with Chris. He brings them here. That's what he's been spending his time with. I get him for a few hours a week, which is cool. But it's just like I've seen a total shift too on his level of stress. The smile on his face when it snows, instead of this like, not coming to the gym, not doing this, and like, he works his tail off during the season. But guess what? He's not broke, and he's doing all right. It's cool, especially I know not everyone listens to this podcast that's a person of faith, even though it is a faith-based, and people know that I am. The point is, when you believe in something bigger than yourself, and when your drive is serving others, even if it's just your clients, your kids, whatever, it's crazy how the universe works out to just take care of you, and you realize what's really important, what you really need versus what you really want. And I think that's what Chris has really come to it. He's doing all right. He's getting his health in order. He's got that balance. I think, and I'm going to be touching this in my book about, like, you got these quadrants of your financials, which is your job, your money, you got your fitness, you got your faith for us, and your health. So, and you got your family. So those 4 F's, and when any one of them is out of alignment, everything is out of alignment. But sometimes we're so out of alignment, we think that's normal. We don't realize that when we get it all in balance, how much better all of it can be. And I think Chris is the reason that I'm realizing that now. And for me, it's been every single day, 30 minutes, and let's not lie to myself, it's really 45 minutes to an hour I take out of my day to spend with my children ever since March 16th. And it continues even yesterday when it snows. People were like, oh, once it gets cold. Even my wife's like, once it gets colder, you guys gonna stop? Heck no, it snows. So we went sledding for like 45 minutes yesterday. And here's Justin, like I used to love the snow when I was a kid, and as I got older, I started to just like, ugh. And
Mhm.
it's not as cold, all by a mindset shift. Like yesterday it wasn't that cold, even though like a
No,
year ago it would have been cold because I hate, it's like, it's crazy. Like,
it
that's why I'm
is.
sharing this, because I'm not like this immune guy that doesn't have similar feelings that everyone's listening to this. It's just like, but like, I'm telling you what's helped me. And like, it's literally all about perspective. So anything else you wanted to share about that? I think that's cool. And I think that anybody listening to a business, like, think about what may be taking away in your business versus what it's giving you, and what
Right.
he realized that the money wasn't always worth it, and he's being taken care of and has been able to focus, I assume, better on just the summer, spring, fall landscaping, correct? Providing more value
That's right.
there, maybe taking on a little bit more because you know you have this whole long winter to look forward to. So yeah,
That's
cool,
right.
man. Anything? So yeah, so okay, so we've talked about fitness. We've talked about the finance part. We've touched on the family. What about everything else? Like, what is going on with Chris right now with COVID still going on? Have you been affected at all? Is there anything you want to share with some of your experiences during that? Since we're still in it, we're hitting it hard here in New York too. Numbers are pretty skyrocketing. But as far as like you, how's things been for you?
During this time, during the COVID period, being that we worked outside, being that we provided what was considered an essential business early on, that being the maintenance part of the contracts that we have, we did not experience, as a company, the shutdowns, the lags, the downturns. Eventually, we saw things like we saw kinks in the supply chain. We saw difficulty getting materials. We saw difficulty in getting product orders filled, things of that nature. But like I said, during this time, being that we work outdoors, we really did not experience a downturn. And then once the initial push came, so many things were shut down. People began to forsake travel. People began to spend money on their homes and their surroundings, and of course, that's where our business is at. Improvements galore, so to speak, because people were hunkered down. They realized that we're going to be here for a long time. We're going to start doing stuff. We're
Yeah.
not going to be able to go to Disney because Disney's closed. We're not going to be able to go on a cruise. We're going to put in that new patio. We're going to repair that old patio. We're going to refresh our landscape, and so
When you're sitting around staring at all
yeah,
these things that you kind of just walk by or ignore
yeah,
mentally, or you just don't even notice, now you're noticing the paint chip on the wall,
that's right.
or this out of alignment, or this you want to get done. Yeah, it's interesting. That's what I've
And
seen
it
too.
wasn't.
Like that's what I heard. It. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was going to say it wasn't just our industry. You have people who are on the waiting list for bathrooms, for decks. I mean, pressure treated lumber was non-existent. People, because that's a homeowner style job. People can attempt to put up their own fences, fix their own steps, even potentially build their own decks. But when people started to, do those kinds of improvements, whether you were trying to do them yourselves as a homeowner or you're trying to hire a reputable contractor, like that's where you saw the explosion. People are waiting still for bathroom, kitchen remodels, all kinds of things. So wasn't just outside, it was inside as well. I mean, the industry is just
Yeah.
taken off.
And that's good. I mean, that's providing word because there's a lot of still people struggling.
There is.
There's some people on the other end of the spectrum that are doing really, really well, which is just interesting. It's crazy. Like even in my industry, in the health and wellness, I've seen plenty of gyms close, downsize,
Yeah.
and then I've seen plenty of people do really well. Like for example, me, we're doing really well during all this. I'm grateful. And what's crazy during all this is like, people like you and me have often found balance in this. It's like, well, we've taken more time out for ourselves and for our family. It's crazy how our businesses not only maintain afloat are doing well. So I just think that's just interesting. And that's one thing I would say to you and congratulate you. And for those that listening, sometimes taking a step back or a step to the side or taking a break in some area or aspect, even if it's only 15 minutes a day, how that can provide more in your life in a lot of different ways. So I think that's another testament to it all, man.
True.
Hey, pretty cool stuff. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I just wanted to touch really quick. You've thrown the word balance out a couple times. Balance was something that was always elusive to me. And when you're young, you believe that your primary objective is to go out there, through work, through your career, through your business that you run, whatever it is that however it is you're trying to, make, earn your keep, so to speak. You push a lot of other things aside because you believe that the name of the game is get as much as I can, do as much as I can, work as hard as I can, as long as I can. And so wasn't until I got older that the word balance really, started to resonate with me, and take a good look at things, including the snow removal, and say, there's not much balance here. Snow removal, for example, when it snowed, I was gone. And nothing else, could prevent me from going to do my job as a snow removal contractor, especially being the business owner. So you can't really say there's balance there when one thing is taking you in such a far right direction. That's not the definition of balance.
Yeah, but people don't really realize what it is, and we're told this lie, and I'm going to call it a lie. Y'all can check me on it if you like, but we're told this lie. Oh, I'm doing it for my kids, or I'm doing it for my wife, or I'm doing it for they'll understand. And from a kid from experience, hearing that story all his life from my parents, it's bull. It's like, you're doing it for yourself because there's like a competition, and I'm a competitive dude. I mean, no, Chris is like. And I get it. It's just, but you got to remember, like, what do you really want to know, like, on that last day of your life, or that last week of your life, or you can't. Everyone knows you can't take any of this stuff to the grave, and we all want to set up some kind of generational, whether it be generational wealth or some kind of legacy. I get it. But there's other ways to do that, and it doesn't mean working 80 hours a week. And maybe there's an initial start. Like when I started mine, I had to work 60, 80 hours a week. But that shouldn't continue 4, 5, 6, 7, 20, 30 years down the road, especially. And if that's the case still, then what are you really doing it for? Because you're not going to be able to retire with much. If you're not very mobile, very physical, or you're not very healthy, you're spending all that money on health care anyways because you neglected it for 20, 30 years. So, and that's why you did this. Like now you've made an investment into yourself and your health, and it's compounded into your business because you've been able to take on more work. You made to balance that off by getting rid of the snow removal, which you balance that out with more time with your kids. At least this is what I'm hearing and I've heard in these stories, and so you also, like, looking ahead, God forbid, but it looks like, you're preventing a lot of health measures. So most likely, unless there's some crazy thing that's happening, you should be able to save money in the long run on healthcare costs with things just continually go up and going up and going up in that spectrum, man. So I think that people can find a lot of value in what you have to say, and just kind of like, if you're still like, well, good for him, if you got kind of a pessimistic attitude towards all this, like, everybody can live a great life and a joyful life. And I think that's the message. And it just depends on what's important to you. And you kind of decide, even if you don't have kids like we do, there's always something. And so that's why, like, for me, it's always health controls everything. Like, if you've got better health, your business, if you got better health, you'll make more money. If you got better health, your family life's better. If you got better health and you're in your faith, trust me, your faith is better, because one, you have more confidence to talk to more people, to invite them to church. One, you have you can be more mobile and be more active. And even during COVID, it's also a mindset. When you're putting it in clean, healthy foods and exercising, there's a positive hormonal effect that just spreads like wildfire into wanting to help more, do more, talk to more people, better energy inside your head. But a lot of this, or lack of movement, starts to get here, and then that affects everything. So anyways, I don't want to go down to my rabbit hole tangent. Anything you'd like to add that we haven't really chatted about, Chris? Again, one step further. What? I know you've got a lot. We talk so much when we talk, and feel like we could always add value. But anything else you'd like to add that's on the tip of your tongue or on your mind on helping people that are listening to this move their life a step further?
For anyone who's listening to this, young, my age, beyond me, try to figure out as soon as possible in life, the correlation between, proper diet and proper exercise, which is going to affect your mental and your physical health. My biggest piece of advice that I have for anyone listening is that start that quest for balance as soon as you can in your life. Recognize early on, as soon as you can, as early as you can, that you have to have the balance, because I'm living proof right now that I was late to the game, so to speak, and so now I've got my work cut out for me as someone who has trudged on so many of these years without balance. Now I have to work on that now. So the sooner you can find out that quest for balance, that's my advice, is that the better life will become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important. I mean, it's literally a start. If you, I was a guy that was said yes to everything and everyone, every client for a while. When I started saying no to things and yes to the right things, it's amazing how that shifted. And again, it's just
Yeah.
let go, let God. Like, pray for what you can, control what you can, but let go of the rest. We can't really control much, honestly. And we're seeing that. And it's a mindset shift. And again, it all comes down to, you hear these things all the time: expose yourself, be around the things that you want to be like. There is energy in that. There is science in that. Like, I'm grateful for a client like Chris, because he brings me energy. And then the next client after that, I can positively affect them. And so just start with that. I like that balance. And if you don't know where to start, well, Chris is a nice guy. He doesn't mind a phone call. He gives me some referrals.
Sure.
So I have people that want to become clients here, but they want to interview old ones. So he's always open for that. He'll provide some of that below. So like an email or something, and then you can contact him there, or me. Like, reach out here to Justin at FlexxMP.com. And there's some links there below too, for below this. Again, we just want to have these conversations with people who want to help them. That's why I started this podcast. If I didn't cut some things out of my life, there's no way I could have, because not only after this, for those that don't know, I do all my own editing, do all this. And right now, this is just a listener-supported podcast. So it's not like monetary. There's no like big advertisements. I just did this because I wanted to bring value outside of the gym to people's lives. The reason why I'm doing a book, the reason why I do a YouTube channel. I know there's not everybody's going to come to the gym. Is this making me millions and millions of dollars? No, not yet. Does it make me some dollars? For sure, but that's not why I do it. So again, if you're liking this, if you're listening to this and you like it, share, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody you think might find some value. If you know Chris, you better be liking this and sharing with everybody all over the Facebooks, the Twitters, and the Instagrams. So anything else you'd like to add before we get off here, Chris?
I'm good, Justin. I think we covered a lot today, and I'm happy to be here to share my story with you.
Yeah, and he's got much more to tell. He's got a great story, but you got a little snippet of it. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to another episode of One Step Further. We appreciate it, and look out for more episodes in the future. Take care.